you kind of think about it, Tinder is like a battle royale game for dating. Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Dornbush, and this is Beyond episode 581, IGN's weekly PlayStation show. I am joined this week by Brian Altano.
You don't ever give us a heads up of what you're going to do at the top of the show, and I'm very happy for it.
Of course not. Lucy O'Brien is also with us.
Hello. And I know what you're referring to.
Never. And John Ryan.
What's the Lee Carvalho's putting challenge of dating?
Ooh, I couldn't even remotely begin to guess. Thank you for joining us, by the way, John. You are back after.
Hi, everybody. It's good to see you all again.
It's
good to see you
glad
too.
to have you back. Before we get into the show, you were previously with us in a Wikis capacity at IGN.
Yeah,
And then you left IGN to rejoin IGN.
I did. I left and then immediately regretted my decision and came back, but in a different way.
And you are now our senior features editor.
I am, yeah. I'm doing this cool new thing with Lucy here. We're going to make some cool features for everybody. It's going to be real neat.
So impress your boss on the show. No pressure whatsoever.
Nope. I'm actually going to be fired this time.
Perfect. Looking forward to that. Before we begin, a couple pieces of housekeeping. Number one, we have a newsletter at IGN. If you didn't know about that, newsletters are still a thing, and it's actually very informational and very well put together. You should check it out if you're interested. It's subscribe.ign.com. You can go there. You can basically get your daily fix of IGN. You see what I did there? And you'll be able to get everything without ever coming to the site, but also please come to the site because we really need you to do that. But it's a really great resource that you can get every day into your inbox. It's tremendously put together by a few people on the team, and you should definitely check that out. In addition to that, if you didn't listen to last week's episode, or if you did, you probably know by now the show, as well as all of IGN's other podcasts, are going audio only starting next week. I know that's kind of a big shock, especially because most of you already listened to us as it is in audio version. But for those who have been watching us, first of all, thank you so much for doing so. We know we've heard you, and we know you are watching on YouTube, on IGN.com, and other platforms. This is a big change for the show, but we are excited to look at the future of the show and what it looks like for us, as well as every other show here. I fell in love with Beyond as an audio podcast, and so I'm really, really excited to see what we can do with the show when focusing on it in just one format and make it the best audio show that we can. Mm-hmm. You'll still be able to listen to Beyond and all the other podcasts on the services you're used to. Apple Podcasts, Pandora, Spotify, and including YouTube. We'll be sure to put the audio version up there as well. So you won't be able to see us on Beyond, but you will be able to see us in other new shows that we're working on that we're really excited to be telling you about in the future, as well as, of course, listen to us every week on Beyond. And obviously, we talked about this a bit last week, and we're talking about it now. We will be going audio only. It is a big change. I know for a lot of you who've been watching, it's a great way for us to be able to connect with you all one-to-one. But we talked about it. We are really excited to try to see what we can do with the show in the audio format.
Yeah. I think that, to bring this to the positive side, I think that magical stuff happens when a show goes audio only, or when a show is audio only. Not to say that studio shows are bad, but studio shows are kind of stuffy. And this is a beautiful studio. Yes. I love it here. But when you do a show like this, it's sort of just I don't know, what do you think? And everybody's all buttoned up. Audio shows get a little more lax and a little more weird, and that's my
I don't have to hold.
That's my zone right there.
No, I think I was saying this in the meeting the other day. I come from the Australian pubcast, which has been only audio only. Mm-hmm. I think we dipped into video once, and it was what are we doing? Hiding our beers under the table. But it's true. It does allow for a way more relaxed vibe, a way more sort of chill vibe, and I think that's really exciting. And I hope that will beget that kind of mood for us.
Yeah, and I'll say I read every single comment on last week's episode, every single one, and I read it all on NVC. I didn't read them on the other shows because I don't care about them as much.
Wow.
I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I understand that people are upset with the decision, and a lot of people are saying we want to leave, and we're gonna this is it. Goodbye. You're fully entitled to do that. I just want to implore you. Give us a chance. Give us a few weeks. If you hate looking at our logo while we talk and you're like, this is not for me, thank you for trying. But if you want to stick around, we're going to make an awesome show for you guys. And we're really excited to keep doing that. These shows aren't being canceled. They're just changing formats a little bit. And I think they're going to improve. Visually, they will not improve. That's a guarantee.
They will.
It depends on
you
your
never know.
perspective. It could be if you hate looking at us. Yeah.
But sonically, they will improve.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree. I am excited to see what we can do as an audio show. I did, as someone who listened to Beyond since episode 1, listening to everyone go off on crazy tangents, knowing the relaxed nature of that. We are sitting at a desk. We're all talking in a somewhat serious format here.
I'm at work right now.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's a bit more freedom in that audio form. And I'm excited to see what we do. And like you said, Brian, I hope you do stick with us on that. I know it may take a few weeks for us to figure out what the show looks like or sounds like. We'll figure out what it looks like, and you won't see it, but you will hear it. And I hope you are excited for what we put together in the coming weeks. Before that all happens, though, of course, we do have plenty to talk about this week. John Ryan is here because he has played many hours of Days Gone. But before we get to that, we have a big announcement about another Sony first-party studio.
Ooh.
Sucker Punch has brought on some top tier talent. Andrew Goldfarb. You may have listened or watched last week. He left IGN, unfortunately, our dearly departed Andrew, my boss. But he has moved on to Sucker Punch, and he's working there as their communications manager. So we probably have not heard the last of Andrew on Beyond. I have a feeling he'll come by at some point to talk
definitely.
about Ghost of Tsushima.
Back into it
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. But if you were wondering and haven't seen his tweet or the many of us tweeting about it, that's where Andrew ended up.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this late and haven't seen him lately,
Yeah, if it's 2025 and you haven't heard from Andrew in a while, that's where he ended up in 2019.
Super excited for that guy.
Yes, me too.
And for that game.
Yeah.
yeah, I've loved everything I've seen of it so far, and I can't wait to see what Andrew shows me.
Even the screenshot that he shared on his Twitter announcement, I was like, God, that looks so good.
Yeah. Yeah, that game is pretty.
pretty.
Can't wait for it on PS5. Probably. But
see.
before the PlayStation 5, JR, Days Gone.
Days Gone.
So you've played-
is almost here.
It's almost here. It's coming out in April, end of April. You played
It's the 26th.
26th.
right?
Yes. Yeah. You played 5 hours of it?
I did, yeah. I played through the first
so-
hour of the game roughly, and then jumped ahead a little bit to, I don't know if it's mid game or still fairly early, but then played another 3.5, 4 hours of it. And I just right off the bat, I had a lot of fun with it. I know there's some folks who are kind of in the fair to Midland place on Days Gone, like they don't really know what its deal is, they don't really know why they should care about it, and it was a really, really solid few hours. I think the big takeaway for me is that it was super, super familiar. Like I jumped into it and I immediately was like, oh, I know exactly how to play this game. Not saying that I'm an expert on tactics in it or anything, but it has its own unique stuff, but it is a really great kind of blend of a bunch of different, very accessible games that we've all kind of become familiar with. As far as a big open world goes, you jump right in and once you're kind of oh, okay, there's, not zombies, there's, this, there's that, and you're immediately at home.
What's some of the DNA that you see in it from other games?
So there's there's that notion of they're zombies, but they're not.
They're freakers.
They're
Freakers.
they're freakers, which naming conventional choices aside, I think you guys actually had a pretty smart discussion about it a while back. I really like what they've sort of done with the freakers, where it's they're not. It's sort of like The Last of Us in that they're not undead. Capital Z zombies have to be undead and feast on the flesh of the living to keep them sustained, whereas freakers are. Think meth heads.
Oh, so it's more like
feral.
it's more like 28 days later, kind of the
Yeah,
infected.
they're
real
infected.
humans.
Yeah.
who
So
are-
it's this plague, this disease that is essentially you know how back before vaccines were a thing, people would get a fever so bad that it would effectively melt their brain.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that.
The good old days.
Good
Old days for some people, idiots.
And my theory on all of that, by the way, and I've said this before, is I don't think this is it's a one-way street.
Yes.
Is what I'm trying to say, is that you don't just become one of these things. I could be totally wrong, but I have a feeling you can become a freaker and then you can not walk back from it or run back from
Yeah.
it. But you can maybe be
There might
cured
be
or healed.
treatment.
And there's all those dudes in The Walking Dead. They're I want to keep my daughter's head in the fish tank.
Don't do
because
that.
One
No.
day this
Nope.
might work. And everyone's it's not going to work. Don't
Well,
do
so
it.
the nice thing
She'll
is
never
there
hurt me.
is that
She
there's
loves
no
me.
there's no infinite loop for little Sally's head to get kept in a fish tank.
Yeah.
You can't do that. They are alive until you explode them or crush them with logs.
Right.
And
Or
what's the most in terms of the usual zombie, let's go for the headshot? Is that the most efficient way of killing them?
I mean, they're honestly not super tough and spongy. They all pretty much fell down in one or two shots.
Obviously
Because
coming
their
from-
strength is numbers, not
right, because Resident Evil
indestructibility.
2.
Yeah, it's not like that.
So
it's
spongy.
not. No, it's not like RE2 where you just unload a full clip into
Okay.
one zombie's face.
In its
Okay.
head,
It's
and it's somehow.
And you're why won't you die? Bears are a very different story. I ran into a couple of bears while I was playing it,
And
and
freaker bears or just regular
Oh, it
bears?
was bad. The bear that I ran into was a regular bear.
Okay.
But we've seen in other trailers and stuff there are freaker bears.
Yeah.
I ran into some infected wolves, which were horrifying. They were just the absolute worst. But yeah, so their whole thing is they're infected. They sleep, which is weird. But they sleep standing up like a horse.
I like that.
It's so strange.
Are they on all fours like a horse or just.
No, they're just standing up.
Okay, got it.
But they sleep.
I was told about those sections where you'll come across this like small canyon where there's a bunch of them just huddled around,
just
sleeping
standing there. Yeah,
just having
it's
lunch.
kind of like, did you guys see iRobot?
Yeah.
You know the bit where he like goes into the shipping container things and like starts
yeah.
opening up containers, and there's just like little clusters of robots standing together, clearly on but not moving. It's sort of like that.
I really appreciate an iRobot reference. In
Oh,
Tekken
hell
19.
yes,
Thank you.
absolutely. I'm not going to leave here without talking about Isaac Asimov at least once.
Perfect.
For those of you who are not familiar with horse sleep patterns but have seen iRobot, we just want to make sure
Yeah.
all the bases are covered.
Right,
It's a
or for
weird
those of you
Venn
who are
diagram.
familiar with iRobot but not horse sleeping patterns.
Yeah. In terms of which, I would say, please fix that.
There are two kinds of people in this world.
There's a hierarchy of knowledge there, and you're kind of screwing it up.
You know about horses, you know about robots. Those are the two people on this planet.
Not like horse robots like on Westworld. That's a different story.
No, that's
That's
just pure
confusing.
fantasy,
That's
Brian. Come
confusing
on.
to all of us.
Yes. Speaking of sponges, I feel like we got all the liquid out of that one.
Perfect. Yeah. Wait, I have 10 more minutes of material.
Yeah.
Hold
Good
on.
job, everybody.
So anyway, going back to the not
I'm
horse
sorry.
sleeping freakers, but yeah.
So, so in terms of like the DNA of other games,
Yeah.
you've sort of got that sense of The Last of Us where it's like, yes, you can fight every cordyceps in The Last of Us if you so choose, but your life is a lot easier and you will be a lot less dead if you don't do that. And so there's then, they bring in a lot of stealth mechanics, which work really well, like super comfortable.
Murder grass.
Yes, sort of. I don't know if I saw like myself become translucent.
Murdergrass is also a great band name.
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, with that pastiche of The Last of Us, I think that's the thing people have compared it to the most going in.
Definitely yes and no.
Yeah.
The yes of it is that really beautifully rendered world. That sort of what this game does really, really well is brings that sense of like constant danger in The Last of Us, where it's like no matter what level you're in, what chapter you're playing, like you're always like looking over your shoulder, like, oh shit, I'm gonna jump out and kill me. And in this, it's very much the same. Like that notion of the world is like, I think their tagline is like, the world comes for you. And it's like that notion of like the world just constantly being out to get you. And that really does feel accurate, I think. Like there was never a time when I was playing through almost any of the hours that I spent, like aside from when I was visiting like a camp or a safe house, where I felt like safe. Like there was always something. Like it was, even as I was just like driving through the woods, like because they've shown off such huge groups of these freakers, anytime I saw just one, I was like, where's the rest of them? Where's the rest of them?
Yeah.
So like I'll be riding through a motorcycle, and like the motorcycle is I think it's interesting to have a world in which no cars exist, but motorcycles do.
Right.
And the lore of it makes sense, where it's like, okay, what is the biggest, stupidest thing that can get in the way of me escaping right now? It's a car.
Right.
Because it can't get anywhere unless there's a road. But motorcycles, like you can change the tires out on those, you can change up the shocks, like they're versatile enough and they're small enough that they can get almost anywhere.
How in depth is that the bike aspect of the game? Because
it's
part of the cycle we've seen of this game. They really did hone in on the bike being like a main part of the
Yeah, and it is. It's sort of like it's an extension of your backpack. It's another tool that's going to keep you alive. So
Would you say it's another character in the game?
no.
That would be great.
If the
yes,
sense that you can like
I just know
customize it.
it's such a cliche to
It's not
say that.
it's not
The
the fifth
world is a
character.
the
of Sex-
world is a character.
It's not the fifth character on Sex and the City. no.
Okay. I get it.
Horses are nature's motorcycles.
That's undeniable.
I've got a question.
there was still material left.
It sounds incredibly tense.
Yeah.
Were you ever actually frightened? Would you call it, like, because so many zombies are so ubiquitous in video games. Like I don't think of a zombie game as necessarily a horror game because
Yeah,
they're
I
just
don't-
like another enemy type.
I don't think I was frightened in the sense
Okay.
of just like there was a couple of moments where like I would be caught off guard or surprised by something. But I think maintaining tension is something it does really well. But I don't think if you're looking for like a horror experience, like if you're looking to be scared like you would in RE2 or Amnesia, like you shouldn't necessarily expect that aspect from this.
I would quantify it as like from what I experienced at the PAX South demo, it's not really fear as much as that sort of incalculable, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
I don't know what the name of that is, but when you look behind, you're like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. Like there's just like 50 people, and
Yeah.
it's not just like this snake. you know, of men. Like they splinter off, and there's like
robot horses,
There's like 3 on
snake
top
men.
over here. There's 10 over here, and there's one guy off the side. And he's like, "Bleh."
Do they,
Like,
do
"God."
they coordinate? Like, I'm really, really interested in how they
They're
move
basically ants.
as,
like
as
they're
an AI kind of.
So as the I never actually ran into one of like I never ran into in the wild like one of those big massive hordes. So like we saw at the PAX South demo, I think
Yeah.
the last time that I played the game, they kind of tracked you in this open like this mass grave where there was like 300 of them.
Yes.
I never ran into a horde that size. I think the biggest group I saw was probably I'd say maybe 40 or 50, which is still like
Significant.
It's a number.
It's
of-
significant.
And so in that moment, like specifically where it was mostly kind of clusters of them as opposed to them all being like one big group trying to get me. But it was really cool because sort of in that notion of like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. Like it was coming off at the tail end of this mission where like I had to like go find this kid who was, you know, been like hiding out in this house. So I ended up rescuing them. And so I've got this kid and then these other bikers show up because basically like because of the cars being pretty useless, like motorcycles have become sort of the ubiquitous vehicle of this particular post-apocalypse. But there's this cult called the Rest in Peace folk who basically view the Freakers as like the next
the
coming.
evolution.
Like they're
of-
right. Like
They're like
there's-
anti-vaxxers, basically.
basically, yeah. They're all just suburban moms from like way up northern California.
They're like, these things are great. I think they're wonderful.
Yeah,
Let's
exactly.
pray.
They just have alopecia really badly. So, anyways, so these guys,
Let's hear them out.
Rippers, are the name of the gang that they use. Which I'm just like,
The
okay,
Rippers?
the Rippers.
Were they watching Full House while they made?
Yes, 100%.
Okay, perfect.
Can you just
Jesse and
quickly
the
remind
Rippers
us of the protagonist name? Because I
I don't want to do that.
please can you?
Oh, it's so
'cause
good.
I truly,
His
I
name
like,
is-
like I just love this name so much. I think it's the best name.
Deacon St. John.
It is great.
Here's the thing, like I keep going on these tangents, and I'm really sorry for that, gang. But
fine. It's
what we want.
Yeah.
when they first introduced him, like I was like, okay, fine, it's another gruff white dude. Like his name's Deacon St. John. I'm like, okay, fine. Like, but I was really surprised they made me care about old Deke.
Did you? Old Deke.
Old Deke. They actually do refer to him
Old
as Deke,
Dekey
which I'm just
Deke.
like,
Oh
okay.
no.
Everybody's got to have a nickname. Like everyone needs a one-syllable nickname that the guy in your ear can be like, "Hey, Deke, come on."
So
I
this is important though, because that's like sort of
Yeah.
what I was going to ask you, and you're probably going to bring it up
So-
right now. Okay.
I had Deacon's question.
They announced this week that the game is going to be roughly 30 hours.
Yeah.
You know, which I think in like dev speak is like it's usually, and every
5 or
developer does
6.
this. 5%. That's usually like on the longer end if you try to find everything. Maybe I'm wrong.
So it sounds like that's just core story.
Yeah, and so
I
they
was
also
talking-
said there's going to be 6 hours of cutscenes, to which I was like, oh man, I really hope I connect with the characters in this game.
Didn't expect to connect with them nearly as much as I did.
That rules.
And granted, I am operating already at a, sort of level of engagement just by the fact that I'm like a straight white dude where I'm just like, oh, this is like as an avatar, I can identify already with you.
I can't.
Yeah, well, exactly. But even
You've
so, like,
never owned a backwards hat.
have you ever had a jean jacket with the sleeves torn off? Have you ever?
Oh yeah.
Actually,
Actually,
yeah.
no,
we
that
go.
does not surprise me.
Yeah,
Everyone
that's
should.
totally on
That's
brand for
it.
us.
That's absolutely true.
You in a backwards hat though, man, I would pay money to see that.
Yeah,
That would never happen.
Have you ever
good
been
Halloween
Starkiller
costume.
in a Star Wars video game? So okay, the kid,
Sam
kid,
Witwer.
Jesus, yes, Sam Witwer, the adult man.
That kid.
That kid. Well, because when I realized that connection, I was just like, that game is not forever ago, but like that's an older game
Been a
to me. So yeah, you may recognize Deacon St. John's actor as Sam Witwer, who was Starkiller
Yep.
in The Force Unleashed and The Force Unleashed
And
2.
Darth Maul in the Clone Wars.
Yep. And Rebels and
Solo?
Solo, spoiler alert for Solo, which I just watched a few weeks ago. Not as bad as everyone said.
Oh no. No
like
one
that
said
movie.
it was
It's
like
fun.
Yeah.
terrible. It's just really forgettable.
Yeah, it's not like a core Star Wars movie, and it's fine. But
fun
this is
romp.
not what we're here to discuss.
Yes.
They did a really good job, and I was really surprised at how invested I became in the handful of characters who I met throughout the few hours that I played. And like they do a lot of interesting stuff with Deacon's backstory and sort of how that ties into the main narrative. And
So with him and Sarah,
Yes.
I was curious about that because, like, at least in the last couple weeks of promoting the game, they really emphasized Deacon and Sarah's relationship.
Yeah.
Like, they sent out a wedding invitation to me to
Oh, that's so
attend
cute.
Deacon and Sarah's wedding, and I'm like, that's not going to go well.
No.
pretty
Well,
sure
I mean,
that's
the wedding, I'm sure, was a beautiful night.
Probably.
It was so memorable and
Yes.
full of magic.
But
But now everything's on fire.
yeah, is it heavy on flashback and conveying his backstory? Is it
What I saw of it was yes.
Okay.
I don't want to get super into the like nuts and bolts of the story because
Sure.
I feel like that is something that I don't have a super strong grasp of based on how the flow of the demo was. So like we played like most of the first hour, and because I've actually been really into Days Gone for the last like couple of years, I've seen it already. They did a live stream of it a few months ago.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the entirety of that opening hour. But then they jumped forward, and I don't know how much I missed in between the two. But it was very much like, okay, now we're in the story, capital TS, the story with, and so yeah, there was a bunch of stuff with Sarah and Deacon that was focused on flashbacks, but they also sort of wound it into what I assume will be like the main part of the core story. So they do this neat thing where basically everything you do has its own storyline attached, and they like track it actively in the menus. So it's not just like you're doing the main story, you're doing side missions. Like the whole story of Days Gone is just like they pitched it to me as like you're finding a reason to live, which I think like that's kind of a stretch.
Who isn't though?
That's yeah,
Every
like that's
morning,
just existing.
I ask
It's
myself
literally
that
just
question.
existing.
That's my open world game.
But that notion of like, what does that mean to people? Like, do I just like there are plenty of people who just live at a camp who just chill.
Yeah.
And like, you know, there's the people who run the camps and like they all have their own philosophies and like sort of trying this back to character stuff. Like this is where a lot of that really came through outside of just like the core two principal roles of Deacon and Sarah and Boozer.
I was going to ask you about that because I think that's where like something like The Walking Dead gets a little like lossy, and people are like, what's the end game here? What's the destination?
Yeah.
Where's the gated community where it's
Right.
not full of cannibals? Spoilers, it doesn't exist.
No.
Like how does all that interact, and like sort of like where you mentioned safe houses and stuff, like
Yeah.
do you build like a domicile that becomes your own, or are there scattered places around the world that you're sort of like, I'm okay here for a little bit? Like where is your like sort of sense of progression in terms of the landscape? And
Well, so this is what I really like, and sort of going back to that idea of the DNA of Days Gone from other games is like there's like your core camps that you can go to, but then there's also safe houses that you can unlock, or like other smaller camps that you can like bunkers basically underground. But those are more like Far Cry outposts where it's like there's a bunch of dudes. Like, do you remember from that E3 demo back when Deacon got clotheslined?
Yeah.
He was riding his motorcycle along and a bunch of guys like set up a trap for him basically. So those sort of like outless guys, I call them the lawless because they're not like, basically there's folks who like live in a camp and they either, you know, find a way to earn their keep, or they, you know, have a work arrangement with folks, or they figure out ways to make supply runs, and they sort of like buy into this new society's way of ordering itself. Whereas these other folks are a bunch of different groups, but they're all kind of just vaguely outlaws, bandits, the lawless folk, whatever. And so they've kind of taken hold of a bunch of strongholds. So like, you know, an old camping lodge or a gas station or something. And like you can take those back to make them your own fast travel points, or you can unlock, I think it's mostly, what the hell are they called? Watchtower fires. Firewatch had them. The lookout
Oh, lookout
yes.
towers.
yeah, lookout towers for like the National Park Service. And those are your safe houses.
oh, cool.
So like you can
But there-
fast travel to
But there's like bad guys on them, and you have to take them down.
yeah.
People are like sick of that stuff. Not me.
I know,
love
if-
those
if
things.
you can
do it
I
and do it
am
well.
so sick of it.
What?
I just
with
like, as soon as it turns an open world into like okay, I've got to unlock this bit, and I got to unlock this bit, and I got to unlock this bit, kind of takes away the authenticity of that open world, and it becomes more of a chore. That's how I feel.
I am nostalgic for outposts and towers because every game
Played New
did
Dawn
it.
like 3 weeks ago.
I know. And Far Cry. No, every game did it for every
an outpost
Ubisoft game
anymore.
did it for like 10
Well,
years straight,
towers.
and then everyone was like, stop doing that, and everyone stopped doing it.
Yeah.
And
The
now I
thing-
want it to come back a little
The
bit.
thing that I like about
Come back
this,
a little
You
bit.
can't be
Bring back a
nostalgic
little
for
bit.
something that's only been gone for like
2 years.
year.
Yes, you can.
I really miss Kingdom Hearts 2, guys. I wish they would bring that.
It's so
back.
long
It's
since
been
I've seen a
so
Star Wars
never gonna
movie in
happen.
theaters.
What I like about this, though, and like, yeah, I totally am with you on the fact of the sort of rote repetition of it being super fatigued. But with this is that they managed to tie it back to everything really well. Like, it is that notion about like the end game. You know, I'm sure that there is a, you know, story beat that is like, okay, the end, there it goes. But like the end game here isn't necessarily about like, oh, I want to check off all the dots. I don't want to do this. I want to do that. It's more just like everything that you do will help you survive. So it's like every fast travel point means that, you know, that's less time that I have to spend potentially getting chased by giant bears. All of the bounties that you turn in, like, because you get bounties for everything. Like if you kill a bunch of freakers, like you take all their ears and sell them back for cash at camp.
That's cool.
It's neat. It's
that's a little
everything.
sick. I
Everything
like that.
feels like it matters. You don't. Unfortunately, there's not like a single animation for every single one. Like you just kind of pick them up like gold coins.
I'm actually,
Less
after Red Dead, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
They can take a while.
Well, you do still skin animals if you go hunting, but like you're not gonna go. You're not gonna blow up a crowd of 300 freakers and then go one by one and be like, got an ear, got an ear, got an
Slow,
ear.
little
That sounds like the
boring.
most like disturbing scene in video game history.
Really horrible.
If they could make like a
much.
Like they're
It's too
picking
much.
flowers.
a freaker skinning simulator is like way too
No,
much for
thank
me.
you.
But speaking of like, you can collect those sorts of things in there. In terms of it, this being an open world game, and I guess thinking a little bit to Horizon in terms of the Sony first party pool, like, are there collectibles in this world? Are there like specific things you can look for? Like
I know that there are. I don't know if either I just didn't find any or if they just weren't like enabled
Gotcha.
in this particular build. I believe I saw a tab for them in the tracker menus though.
Gotcha.
There's Korok ears.
Yeah, that's it. Surprise, surprise. You
Yeah.
loved them in Zelda. Well, they're here too.
They're
and
back.
It's a lot sadder.
You thought Xbox and Nintendo was teaming up. Wait until you see Days Gone.
But yeah, I mean, in terms of like just like the big open world, I think Horizon's a very astute comparison in terms of like the sort of structure and the size of the world itself. Like, because it is, or at the very least, it seems fucking massive.
Yeah.
You know, the area that we've seen in a lot of the trailers, this region, I think it's called the Cascades or something like that, where it's like heavily forested and there's a bunch of just like tall trees and like kind of like little trails and rockier mountains, was big to explore. But then we went to this second part of the demo, which started me in a whole other section that was more like rocky. It was like high desert as opposed to like kind of forested mountains. And again, I rode around for a long time and like only bounced back into that previous area like once or twice.
And it's aesthetically very different.
Yeah. It's really
Okay.
it's neat. It's very much, you know, I think potentially the rest of us, depending on how much time outside of San Francisco we spend, are a little more used to it. But I think it's an interesting set of biomes to see next to one another, to see these really, really dense, huge trees with snow and like kind of snow-capped mountains and the occasional dusting like down on ground level and heavy, heavy rain, to then switch over to, in the span of just a few miles, like rocky desert and kind of like dusty trails winding around these like kind of dead trees and like all of these, like it's a hot spring, so like there's just like kind of, it's just kind of wet.
That's
Like, there's
all
just
that
these,
sounds
like,
awesome.
Yeah,
It's really
it
cool.
does.
I'm super into it because I feel like Horizon was like a little. It almost felt like Super Mario World. Like it was really on the nose. It was a little jarring. It was like, here's Ice World and here's Fire
it
Town.
did do
You
that.
know, like
I think-
and I love that game. But like, it just you would go from one area to another, and all of a sudden there would just be like fire monsters everywhere.
Yeah,
and
but
you're
you
like,
can still see
all
like
right.
snow over
Yeah,
there, but
yeah,
there's
yeah.
lava all around
Yeah,
you.
I think that there might be a little bit of that here, but it's less so.
Sure.
It's definitely like, I won't say more believable, but a little more skewing the side of the realism.
A little more gradual, maybe.
Yeah, it's more. It's not. There's not going to be like, oh, this is just the snowy part. It's like, oh, these mountains sometimes get cold enough to snow.
So, like, in terms of upgrading your person, I know you can do that with your motorcycle.
Yep.
There was a bunch of stuff in, I think, when they announced like the release date and the the launch package and all that in this collector's edition. There's all this like extra bells and whistles you can put, not literal bells and whistles on your motorcycle.
There
although
might
that sounds-
actually be
There
a
might
whistle. on
You
it.
can put baseball
believe-
cards in the spokes and just kind of.
I would love
ding,
that.
ding.
Ah!
That'd be
Hi
real good.
everyone.
Please add that if you're listening. No.
Really enjoy that.
Can you
That's my bike horn.
can you upgrade your weapons, your character?
Sort
Like-
of. Well, yes, you can upgrade your character. Deacon has like a skill tree in a couple of different veins. Like there's melee skills and there's combat skills, and they're all like the ones that I had I basically had like 4 or 5 skill points to spend during the broader chunk of my demo. And I will admit, like I had regrets based on what I did, and I usually think I'm pretty careful, but like, and it's not that any of them felt useless. That I chose one that was like a bad choice. It was beneficial for sure. But I regretted not choosing something else after I was like, oh, wait, shit, no, this is a lot more effective in this particular
Right.
scenario that I happen to find myself in. So, yeah, I mean, there's, I think, 3 or 4 different skill trees that you can unlock.
Cool.
And it's very much like that sort of, harkening all the way back to like, your nostalgia for Far Cry 3. Like, it's sort of that notion of like, yes, it's a big open world action game, but there's still those RPG elements where you will, be able to boost up your bike and your character, and like they'll all have certain benefits, like being able to repair your melee weapons instead of having them just degrade and then break is like fucking so important.
Oh, they degrade. It's degradable weapons.
Yeah. There's a sort of arcadey bit of survivalism to this game, which I really like. Like your bike will break if you pop too many sweet wheelies off of ramps, which I did all the time.
There
and
are
I-
trick course you can find. I
I'm
hope,
sure
in
that
the
there
world.
I bet
is.
there
Yeah, I
is.
can't
Yeah.
By the way, there's just something inherently funny to me about like an adult dude driving a motorcycle through the woods. Like it's just not
like through the dirt.
through
not
and there's just like you're winding around trees and stuff like that. It's just like I know that it's a serious game, but to me, like when I do that in Far Cry, it's like the goofiest shit.
Oh yeah,
I don't know. I find that kind of like it's weird. I find that sort of unnerving as a concept. Like
Yeah.
a man driving a motorcycle through the woods is very frightening to me.
Well, I think even like a kid on a bicycle through the woods, it's like that's kind of treacherous. But like a motorcycle, I don't know.
It's like flying a kite at night.
Yeah,
yeah, it's wrong.
it's
It's
unwholesome.
wrong. Yeah, it's
yeah.
not- it's
That's the
not
thing I've literally
wholesome.
never had to think about.
It's
but-
unnatural, and I refuse to see it until I play this game.
But you know, people keep bringing up The Last of Us, and I understand why, because it's a PlayStation exclusive, gritty zombie-ish game. Blah 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 blah. But I think what separates this game from Naughty Dog games is that you can upgrade the weapons and you can keep them. And
Yeah, yeah.
That's always been my disconnect in like Uncharted and stuff like that. Is like Nathan Drake is just picking up guns and shooting them and throwing down, picking up guns. There's never ever like this is my shotgun and I made it better and better and better.
So technically, I'm gonna say this, but I might be corrected by Sony and/or Dev. So I'm sorry if that's the case. I think all of your weapons are technically borrowed. So like, yes, they are your guns. You will not have them removed from your inventory. But the way that the system works, it's not money. You don't get money from people. Like you don't turn in bounties. You don't hunt a bunch of freakers and steal all those delicious ears. And people just pay you with a stack of bottle caps or bullets or whatever. Like you earn, for everything you do, you earn credit. So like instead of it being you actually have to carry on money and pay someone with it, the camp is just like, okay, we know you well enough. You've done enough favors for us that like, cool, like we trust you enough to have this gun.
Interesting.
Or we feel like we owe you enough to give you a new part to your bike. And then the more you do for them, the more they'll trust you. And it's just leveling up your rank with them. But the more that like I like it as a bit of additional world building.
Yeah.
Like so again, it goes back to that thing of like it's got a bunch of DNA from other games, and so it all feels really familiar.
But not
But it's all
boring.
but in a believable sense, but it's also just really well done. Like yes, you might argue that we've seen this before, what's the point? And I'm like, yes, you've seen it before, but it's also like not bad. Like
Yeah.
that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
to take mechanics that are tried and true and do them really, really well, that's good.
Isn't inherently a bad thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like they seem to be doing interesting enough things with the story and with especially with the sort of physics playgroundiness of the hordes that I'm really curious to see what the rest of it looks
Yeah,
like.
hearing you talk about it so much, like I'm probably more excited than I've been in a while for this game. Like
Nice.
so you did a good job.
I did it.
You didn't even write the preview yet, or maybe you did. Who knows?
I did. You can see it on IGN right now.
Excited.
Hell yeah.
I
Don't do
forgot
that.
this is the future. But anyway, I am curious. So you played roughly about 5 hours or so, and you hopped around a bit. One of, I think, the concerns we've expressed here is we kind of see the game within the gameplay span of an hour or 2 hours.
So, yeah,
But how do you think it will go along the longevity?
That's what I don't know.
Okay.
I think what I walked away with was I really like what I played and what I played for that 5 hours. So we've seen it up until now. It was sort of this disparate collection of mechanics. Like there was that one demo where you could choose the stealth portion, where you're just gonna sneak through a motel and like collect gas cans while trying to avoid or stabbing freakers. And then there was that horde demo that you played, Brian, where it's like you can just shoot the out of a lot of them. Sorry, I swore. And we never really knew what that looked like kind of as a whole. So now we've got a chance to see it sort of as, you know, the sum of its parts. And the few hours I spent with it like look really good. Like it was fun. It felt good. It was familiar. But again, for me, that's not a bad thing. But I don't know what it looks like in terms of, you know, 30 hours or 40 or 50.
I mean, I think so much of that will come down to variety of world and enemy types as well.
Yeah.
Like, you know, open world games nowadays in a post Red Dead world, not that this is, you know, on the same level, but there's an expectation of the world being alive and interesting. And I think, you know, Horizon Zero Dawn did a good job just in terms of its like enemy types. Like I just remember having these like sort of encounters just exploring that was so memorable.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's for me, that's like the biggest question mark.
Yeah, I look at it right now. Like my biggest fear that is that we'll see what happened to this. See what happened to Mafia 3 happen to this.
Yeah.
Where because I loved everything that I saw of Mafia 3 up until it came out.
Right.
Because like all the preview content that I had, like I loved Lincoln Clay as a protagonist. Like I loved the story stuff, and the story stuff throughout the entire game was good. It's just that everything between cutscenes was like, well, okay, I've done this for the billionth time.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't know what the rest of the world looks like.
Yeah.
I don't know what other like the only kinds of zombies that I ran into were the
Freakers.
swarmers, which are the only kinds of freakers that I ran into. Thank you, Jonathan. I truly appreciate
Anytime.
that.
Happy to be here.
Thank you for checking that. The only kinds of freakers that I ran into were like the ones they call swarmers, which are like the basic run of the mill, not zombie, and then the newts, which are the kids, which are genuinely horrifying.
I hate
and
those.
I
Yeah, Brian
literally
talked
think-
about those before.
I
Oh
don't
my
think
God.
I've ever felt worse in a video game than stabbing a child in the face.
It's
because it's not a zombie.
Yeah.
He's not already dead. That's a live kid, man.
that's
Sorry, I
just
swore
like a
again.
kid with not a lot of hair.
Ronnie has to deal with it, not us.
Sorry, Ronnie.
We can get back to decapitating ears soon and not.
Yeah, we'll go back to that. It'll be totally fine. Wholesome ear removal.
Ronnie says it's fine. Great. Well, there are also, you know, bears and wolves and other.
Yeah. Well,
Night-
and, like,
nightmare
yes,
animals.
but it was really. There are moments in this. And I don't think I was expecting to have such a visceral reaction to it. When I was like, oh, okay, cool, you're doing the kid zombies thing. That's fine, whatever. Oh shit, you're doing the kid zombies thing. And it's legitimately
scurry?
creepy.
Do they
Oh, they're horrifying. Like to either come out of a building that I was just in and then like turn around and see there's like 4 or 5 of them on the roof, and I'm
Oh
just like,
No, thank you.
well, because
Father.
if they know I'm here, then other ones know I'm here.
They got these,
and
like,
if other
weird-
ones know I'm here, then that's a big problem.
Gangly legs and just like.
Oh, it's so
eh.
creepy. Like, especially if there's just one of them. Like, if you just see one, you're like, shit, where's the rest?
Where's
of
the
them?
rest?
They're like
of
little
it?
That's
spider
Kubrickian.
children. Like
I don't like that.
It really, and it does, again, it's like, it's all mechanics that we've somewhat and seen in some fashion before, but it's really well put together.
exactly. You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah,
Motorcycles don't even have wheels.
They have
What-
two.
what?
They have
Yeah,
two.
that's-
No, those are horses. You're
The
thinking.
steering wheels. They don't have steering wheels. That's what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. That one.
mean,
that,
sorta.
Yeah.
two of them.
I was like, oh, that's an interesting.
They don't have steering wheels technically.
Position.
They have handlebars, and you can ride them through the woods and look cool as hell.
Or super scary.
That's true.
Either or. But
We're
John,
still figuring them out.
We'll get there. Meantime, horses.
why even bother
Got
to
those
try to
down.
transition?
No wheels.
This
on
is just a horse podcast.
Yeah, we're not
now.
just going to horses. John, thank you so
I
much
feel like
for
the last time I was on here, we talked about horses. a lot.
horses?
You were here
Yeah.
for Red Dead.
That's it. That's why.
Yeah,
God damn
exactly.
Yeah, you're IGN's horse expert next to Brian and Max.
No.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank
A
you
lot
for
of
being
people
on.
vying for that job, by the
Yeah.
way. So congrats.
It's a new role.
Glad
we've
I
opened
fell
up
into it by accident.
I failed when I thought that horses had 2 or 3 wheels. They're like, you have to get out of here.
that the interview didn't go well for you. I'm sorry.
No.
Not at all.
JR, thank you so much for letting us know all about that. I'm really
course,
excited
yeah.
to hear, after hearing your preview. And
I really can't wait for more people to play at least as much as I have, if not
Yeah.
more so, because I'm really curious to see how this pans out.
And I feel like people's expectations for this game are quite tempered, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah, I genuinely hope that this turns out to be like not necessarily a sleeper hit, but like a really great surprise for a lot of folks
Yeah.
for the middle of spring.
Yes,
Because like
yeah.
there's not much kind of coming down the pipe during that particular time frame.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
after this glut of releases that we've had recently, it's kind of slowing down.
You get
a bit, so.
Sekiro in a couple of weeks, and then shrug.
Yeah, it'll be exciting to see that game come out and all of us be able to see what that long tail of the game looks like. But thank you so much for letting us know about it. And like you
course.
said,
Thank you for
your
having me.
full written preview is up on
Yes,
IGN.
yeah, it's on IGN.com right now, or YouTube if you prefer.
Before we get to Days Gone actually releasing, if you are a PlayStation Plus subscriber, you can play the new games that are free this month for PlayStation Plus. We want to talk about those because, of course, they always announce those in between episodes the day after we post an episode. So
Hooray.
we're always talking a week late. But for the month of March, you can download Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered as well as The Witness. And so this is the first month we are not getting PS3 or Vita games as part of PlayStation Plus offerings. And I knew this. I expected this. They've told us for a year this was going to happen, and yet I still felt a weird twinge of when I saw only 2 games listed on the PlayStation blog. I was kind of like, oh, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
How do we all feel about
PS3 surprises me.
the lack of PS3?
Yeah,
they must see the numbers.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
so,
I get it. Like, I get it. I'm just like, aw.
yeah, they gave us like a year. They gave everyone like a year heads up that they were going to do this. So it's not too surprising. But I think that like what bums me out is that every single month there would be about four or 5 games, something like that. And invariably 1 or 2 of them would be cross-buy. And that means that if it came to Vita, there was like some weird secret PS4 version that you might have missed. And so you had a third PS4 game. Or it'd be a PS3 game that also, had a cross-buy on PS4. And so if you just played PS4, but you abandoned ship on Vita and PS3, like many of us did a long time ago, you would get more than 2 games every single month. Because when you get 2 games, there's a chance you have one already.
Right.
And then you only have 1 game.
Yeah.
And now all of this is kind of just bonus on the fact that we all just have to pay for online services now. Technically, they don't owe us anything, but they did it for a long time, and it was nice, and it was cool to see that many games. I can't help but feel like this is a loss of value for consumers because our subscription stayed the same price, but the amount of stuff that we're getting every month has decreased, and that kind of sucks.
Well, I mean, sort of. I mean, I look at PS Plus and I think in terms of what I'm paying for, I have the ability to cloud save, which is great, super handy.
And
Which
they
they-
did increase, the size of that.
Right, which is
Demonstrably.
great.
Yeah.
Realistically, though, I use that a lot more than someone at home who has 1 console realistically does. And the other side of it is they get to play multiplayer games, which I personally kind of feel like that should just be included in the cost of your game.
Yes.
But the reality of what we play now.
Well, no, exactly. And that's
Yeah.
the thing. Like
But
the
yeah,
server load
totally,
cost
yeah.
does need something to manage, but at the same time, like, is that worth $60 a year? $50
Sure.
a
Right.
year?
Yeah, maybe if you only play 1 multiplayer game a year,
Exactly.
and you're not a hardcore Call of Duty player or something
I'm not like a big multiplayer guy. So
Sure.
for me, this service has always been about keeping the lights on,
Right.
and getting free games through PlayStation Plus. And then obviously also there's like, and this is like not something I don't want to forget, but there are a ton of discounts that are available through
Yes.
PlayStation
Yeah.
Plus,
Yeah.
which is super cool because like regularly games before they launch to preload, you like save $3 or $4 or something like
Yeah.
that, or things will be 50% off. Like it's really cool in that way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
every sale the PlayStation Store has, you always, as a PS Plus member, get a better discount.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that like stop paying for PS Plus.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to
Yeah.
rally the unions against it. Like, I'm very much glad that I subscribe to it.
Yeah.
But it is that notion where it's like I can see where folks would be arguing. Without this, for example, if I was someone who had a Vita and then or if I was someone with PS3 and actively using it, but not much else going on, where does my value come from now?
That's a good, I mean, that's a good point. I would say like, the ship has sailed on those products.
Yeah.
Like for the fact that up until last month you're getting free PS3 games is pretty amazing.
I think it's
Yeah.
incredible, to
Yeah.
be honest.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's something.
Well,
I mean,
that's dedication.
It makes
Yes.
sense. It makes a business sense
Totally,
because there are
yeah.
so many people out there who are still playing on PlayStation 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm surprised.
I do think there's a bit on the dev side that is disappointing to me because even when there were 6 games, even if like not all 6 were things I wanted to play every month, but it also gave some games, whether they were cross-buy or not,
Spotlight.
a spot that they wouldn't otherwise have. And so I would assume going forward, if you only have 2 games to promote, you're not going to want to put the 2 smallest indie games to be like your flagship online service. You can get these 2 games. Like you are going to put Call of Duties or The Witnesses or first-party games that have been out for 5 years.
That's a really good point.
And so I worry that a game like Iconoclasts, which was just on a few months ago, may not get the chance, or like something. Obviously, it's huge now, but like when Rocket League launched for free on PlayStation Plus, had that been one of two games, people may not have been like, what is this game? I don't know.
Right.
Like, there could be any different world.
Right,
instead of
right.
Smaller games.
Maybe there will just see a larger selection of free stuff. Like maybe it will be a Call of Duty or a Hitman or some other AAA-ish title. But then you'll also see a couple of indie games that it's not really gonna ding Sony too much for financially to put on the discounted market.
That's why I wish they had gone with like 3 games across the board every single month, because I think then there is room for you have the expectations for your Modern Warfare remasters and your The Witness, which is basically a small game made by one person. But
Yes.
But it's known and significant.
Yes,
And it made a splash.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's on iPhones. It got
Yeah.
ported pretty much everywhere. And this would have been a perfect spot to sort of be like, oh, we also have like this tiny game you never heard of, like Slime Son or something, which is like a cool game I championed on Switch. Like just like a cool 8-bit platformer that maybe somebody would have missed otherwise. But I think the big elephant in the room here is PSVR.
Yeah, for me as like a PSVR convert last year who had zero interest in the beginning of 2018 in VR as a thing, and then came out of it with 3 of my favorite games of the year being PSVR games. Like, I wish they would add a PSVR supplement to this, not just for someone like me who now loves the thing, but someone who is maybe on the fence about it. Because if you stack free games after 6 months,
Yeah.
you go into December and November where there are all these crazy Black Friday deals and a bundle this year is $150.
Yeah.
You have 12 free games ready to go, and they don't have to be all Astrobot to the World or Tetris Effects or things like that. They can be some of the smaller, more bespoke, maybe like the 7s of a PSVR game. But offering those and having that library inherent, I would think would make people more likely to buy a PSVR.
Yeah,
maybe.
it's bizarre to me that that's not happening, because you'd think at this point Sony would be supporting VR as much as it possibly could be, because we are at this sort of time in the VR life cycle where it could go one of two ways.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I don't feel it hasn't obviously rocketed to sort of unanimous, ubiquitous success like many were talking about when sort of VR was that. Like, what year was that when VR suddenly just went boom? And there was the Vive, and there
16 or
was
17.
Yeah.
Yeah.
like, and everyone was predicting that it was, the world had changed. It was gonna, it's not going to be like the 90s again. It's going to be like this huge new thing.
It's our Mario 64 moment. And,
Yeah,
and there
yeah.
were definitely shades of that, right? Like
There
there were
were.
moments of that for
And
sure.
I think that there are demos of that exist. Like there are plenty of reasons of VR that can show you like, oh shit, this is the next step for us.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
problem now is just there's just the barrier to entry of cost. Like,
That's exactly it, and I
Yeah.
think that like what Jonathan's saying is spot on, because that sort of alleviates that a little bit. PSVR is the best-selling VR platform of all the ones we named.
Yeah.
That rose to the top, and I think part of it is because it's synonymous with PlayStation, which is synonymous with gaming. And if you look back at the PSVR's launch, there's a bunch of games in there, like Until Dawn and Wayward Skies, where
Yeah.
like you're like, this would be the perfect thing to throw in as like a perfect number 3 in PlayStation Plus.
And,
like
and they've done occasional months where even when there were 6 games, they offered a free PSVR game in addition to that, or like one of the PlayLink games. Like they've done that before, so there is precedence for it. But yeah, it's weird to see that wasn't like the third slot will always be a PSVR game.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine the money Until Dawn Rush of Blood makes every month is worth like putting it up for free for 1 month just to get people interested in
Or
it.
even if
Like,
they rotate it as like a trial thing, like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
change the formula a little bit so it's like, okay, you get these 2 for free in your library no matter what. With PSVR, here's a month-long demo.
Yeah.
Like, play as
Yeah.
much of it as you can in a month, and then
If I
back out.
if I didn't have PSVR and you gave me Batman Arkham VR for free,
Yeah.
yep.
that would be one of those things that would make me go like, oh, I hadn't considered this, but now this is a thing I want to do.
yeah.
Yeah.
Especially once you see like the video of like the fact that you can dance in a mirror in that game as
great.
Batman, and wiggle your face. It's so weird. It's serious.
It's amazing.
love VR.
I
Yeah.
played that demo in a small room with someone like in PR watching me. And I gotta say, playing anything in VR, especially when you're just standing and it's very disorientating in front of someone in PR, is just a horrible experience. Can we
yeah.
just like all
Oh,
it's
it's
like
awful.
It's so awful. And I just remember thinking, I'm gonna faint. I'm gonna fall over. I'm actually gonna fall over because it was so strange. That was like one of my first proper experiences.
Yeah.
And it was quite formidable, just like going down into the bat cave.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I thought I was going to fall off the side of the
I
platform.
thought I
Yeah.
was, and
Yeah,
I was
so
like,
afraid of that.
and I was like, the PR person is watching me do this.
Yep.
What
Yeah.
am I doing with my arms?
A lot of the the Batcave in that game specifically feels like a very real, lived-in place,
Yes.
and like
Yeah.
just the simple. And I forget what it was. The that shark demo as part of the PlayStation Worlds.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
VR Worlds thing. Just the simple act of going up and down in an elevator in a video game is the most boring shit. And you do it in VR, and you're like, what? I'm on an elevator. It's so cool. Simple things like that. And even I've said this so many times in the show, but like Arkham VR has a moment where you pick up a clipboard and you're analyzing it for clues, and you turn your hand and you're like, look at the clipboard. You can see that clipboard. And in a video game, when you find a clipboard, it sucks.
Oh, it's the worst.
And in VR, it's
Especially
so
if you
cool.
have to manipulate it. It's
Yep.
just like it floats and then it turns.
really
Yeah.
slowly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something that I feel like once you get into the hands of people, it's so much more easier to explain. But
Yeah.
yeah, demoing or playing VR in front of people is one of the most embarrassing experiences.
So awful.
Versus what you feel like playing. I play Beat Saber a bunch, and so I'm in my apartment like doing this with Move controllers, and in the game I'm Darth Maul.
Yeah.
But my girlfriend is just on the couch like, what is this?
In real life, you're the
Like,
Star Wars kid.
Yes, I'm in Arrested Development, but yeah, it's. I hope obviously like for those who subscribe to PlayStation Plus, like if you're unhappy about like the change or you do think there could be things better, like be vocal about it. We'll see if there are changes. Obviously, as we go into a new generation, we'll probably see a difference there. I would assume this is probably what that's somewhat setting up, but yeah, it's a little disappointing to now see put into practice, but we'll see where it goes from here. Moving on, we're unfortunately a little pressed for time, but I did want to ask in general because it's kind of been there have been so many releases recently, both like big, huge games as service games and then little releases here and there. What are you guys playing recently? We haven't really like talked about that much.
Well, I played a shitload of Days Gone.
Yeah, you played a lot of days. Have you been playing? You've been playing Anthem a bit though.
I'm
too,
playing
right?
Anthem
Yeah.
a bit. I played the first round of the Division beta.
Okay.
Which I liked enough. I'm actually really curious to see what that full game, like, not necessarily what it looks like, because like it's the Division. I feel
Yes.
like I know
Yeah.
how it plays. I feel like I know, sort of what the broad strokes story is going to be. But I'm really into seeing like where it goes and like sort of how their end game has evolved since the last time around.
Yeah, I played maybe 4 or 5 hours of that beta, and I was enjoying it. It
Yeah.
definitely it was familiar, but like again, it was well done. So I'm excited to see what it looks like for 15 hours.
Yep.
Brian, have you been playing anything?
Yeah,
recently?
I played a bit of Trials, which is really cool. I like
Oh,
the game a
yeah.
lot. That's a good time. But Jason Schreier over at Kotaku has been writing about Bloodborne like crazy.
You been playing it again?
Right.
And so I jumped back in over the weekend just to like go into that first hour again. And I wanted to do like a weird playthrough where I'm like, I'll play with a weapon I've never used and like pick a different sort of like, you don't really have classes in that game, but there's like presets that you can play that are different and weird.
You get like a different buff. Or
Yeah,
whatever at the beginning.
and I love the fact that you wake up in a hospital bed in that game and walk downstairs at a medical clinic and there's just like
Wait,
this
are you playing Bloodborne or Metal Gear?
Bloodborne. Yeah, and there's a horrible wolf and he's eating the corpse of a man and you walk
I'm not
outside
confused.
and you pull this lever and this ladder falls down and you're going up the ladder and while you're going up the ladder there's this guttural yell that's just like and you never find out what it's from. It might be the Bloodstarved Beast. You never see it. You never really hear it again. And then you get upstairs and it's just like Yarnum, and everyone's mad at you and wet. I love it.
I think I've played that part. That is the sequence of a video game I think I've played the most in my adult life.
It's so
only
good.
because it took me so long to get past that
Yep.
beginning section.
Yep.
I was just going back and back and back and back and back and back and back.
Also, I was so proud this time because I remember that like to level up in that game, you have to go to the first boss and die, and then you can go talk to the doll, and she becomes alive, and she's like, "Oh, what do you want, Hunter?" and whatever, and then she helps you with stuff, and there's garbage all over the steps, and you pick it up, and you have toys. It's cool.
Yeah, but it's like I remember that whole Yharnam,
Yeah.
like opening section of Yharnam, like I remember games from my childhood. 'Cause I was playing games from my childhood like over and over because
Yeah.
I had nothing else to play. Like I just would have one video game at a time. But that's how it felt with Bloodborne. It's
Yeah.
ingrained in my memory.
And it's so good. And
Yeah.
so I realized that the other way to level up in that game is to go deep into the toilet sewers where the giant rats are, and you find the madman's knowledge, and then you consume it, and then you go back and you can level up without ever dying. And so I had like 3,000 blood dollars or whatever, and
blood bucks.
killing all the rats with my whip. And then I went back to the lady, and I could level up now, and I'm very happy. I love that game.
It's like
Bloodborne
your
rules.
fifth playthrough, right?
Yeah, definitely.
That's a lot of Bloodborne.
I've still never really gotten past the initial opening areas. It's just been something.
worth it.
Yeah, I really have always meant to. It's just been
I
that
wanna
thing
go
of
back
like,
too. We can play co-op together.
ooh,
Oh yeah.
I've only gotten to Vicar Amelia, and Eric Sapp had to beat her for me.
Oh yeah, I'll say real quick because Max Scoville's not here right now. He's out there, but he's playing the game too. And I told him a couple weeks ago, like, if you get stuck in that game, ring your bell, and if famous murderers from the internet will show up and help you destroy these nasty wet horse skeletons.
Yeah.
That's 100%. Why
Yeah.
is that not a box quote?
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And Lucy, you said you were playing a little Apex Legends still.
Yeah, a little
Is-
Apex
yeah.
Legends alongside the Dark Souls of dating, Tinder.
Ah, yes.
So I've been occupied.
Two big
Get the
games. for
madman's
2019.
knowledge.
To get the madman's knowledge. Yeah,
think you
I've
just
had a
get
little bit of
that
that
by-
actually, for sure. No, Apex Legends. Yeah, I'm still terrible at it. It's still a lot of fun. For me, it's like I just need to get a squad together because
Yeah.
I'm playing by myself. And like while playing by yourself is fun, you know, I want to have friends who know that I'm terrible and who will
Help
We know you're
carry me
terrible.
like a small baby.
It's a weird, isolating experience to play that game alone.
Yeah.
Especially
yeah.
when you're on a part of the map where no one really else is.
Like, I really appreciate the ping system, and I think
Yes,
that the ping
yeah.
system is completely revelatory. I don't have to actually talk to children and feel existential. But I do like the fact, you know, the ping system is great because you can play silently, but I still prefer to just know that my friends have my back.
Yeah, absolutely. I've also been playing a bit of Trials Rising. I love those wacky motorcycle men dying in horrendous ways every time I crash.
It's really funny how like each level ends with the
Yes.
death of your man.
I love that so much.
They added the meatbag challenge from Skate 3 yet, where the objective is just to break as many bones as you can.
They're one of the side challenges is to essentially toss the body as far as you can, and you'll hit exploding barrels to keep you
the
going.
stairs,
Yeah.
right?
So, yeah,
I remember the stairs
yeah.
one from like the first try.
This is just like a big mountainside sort of thing.
Can we just get that mode from Skate 3 remade, please?
Just bring back Skate.
please.
It
Just
would-
bring
Yeah,
back
just
Skate.
bring
Just
back
bring back.
Skate.
Just give me Skate 4.
I really appreciate how like ultra polished this like utterly disgusting ragdoll simulator is.
Yes.
Like it is a very detailed, very meticulous, very mechanical game about killing your man with the bicycle.
And it works out well, though. I
Yeah.
will say on a trophy note, because we're not doing trophy tests this week, I hate the trophies in that game because they're all for like expert level play. You basically like don't get any for playing at the beginning of the game, but it's still fun to play.
You just rev your engine, you get a trophy.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I'd
Yeah.
love that so much. Anyway, thank you all so much for joining me for this episode of Beyond, episode 581. When we're not on the show, Brian, where can people find you?
You can find me on Nintendo Voice Chat or on Twitter at Agent Bizzle.
And Lucy, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Luce O'Brien.
And JR, where can people
You
find
can find me on most social platforms at US of JR.
And I am at JM Dornbush on Twitter and Instagram. You can find me talking about my cute dog and Kingdom Hearts, as always.
You do have a very cute dog.
Thank you. He is adorable. We love him, but he bites feet way too much.
Gross.
Anyway, thank you for watching this episode of Beyond. And as always, Beyond.
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 Yep. Beyond.
Beyond.